Hey guys, it's Atheist for the Cause here, and I wanted to talk to you about presidential pardons. I've been meaning to do this video, but I've been waiting for the right time, and President Trump gave me that right opportunity. So let's have a look. While all agree the U.S. president has the complete power to pardon, why think of that when only crime so far is leaks against us? Fake news. And so he's referring to, Donald Trump Jr. emails and that kind of stuff. So if we look at pardons, people have questions about three questions I've heard people asking is, can the president pre-pardon? And the answer to that is yes. Does a pardon carry guilt? And the answer to that is maybe. And does the pardon need to be accepted? And the answer to that is yes. So we have a pardon of Richard Nixon. A presidential pardon of Richard Nixon was issued on September 8th, 1974 by President of the United States Gerald Ford, which granted former President Richard Nixon a full and unconditional pardon for any crimes he might have committed against the United States while president. So there is clear precedent here that of pre-pardoning. Okay? And that was actually justified by Gerald Ford privately through the Berta versus United States case. As you can see down here in later use, that Gerald Ford carried around in his wallet texts of the Berta decision that suggested that a pardon carries an imputation of guilt and the acceptance carries a confession of guilt. Legal scholars have questioned whether that portion of Berta is meaningful or merely dicta. President Ford made reference to the Berta decision in his post-pardon written statement furnished to the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives on October 17, 1974. So it says, however, said reference related only to the portion of Berta that supported the proposition that the Constitution does not limit the pardon power to cases, convicted offenders, or even indicted offenders. So, or indicted, offenders. But so that's the maybe where it's kind of toss up. There isn't a clear set precedent for whether it actually does carry guilt or not. So, but it has been written about in court rulings. So what is this case really about? Basically, a media member by the name of Berta refused to give a source. President Woodrow Wilson, trying to abuse the presidential power, obviously here, pardoned Berta to force him to testify. Berta rejected the pardon to keep his Fifth Amendment right so that he didn't have to testify, giving up his source. And imagine if it went the other way, where a president could just force a pardon onto somebody and then they would lose their Fifth Amendment right. Then they'd have to go testify and give up their sources. Like, imagine what that would do to our media. So this was a very serious court case. Court ruled there was an ability to reject, and they didn't rule on the pardon before conviction. But as I said before, the Richard Nixon, he later pre-pardoned, or Ford pre-pardoned Nixon. So it does. So, you can go through and read this if you want, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It just, some bullet points here are that Berta versus United States was a case in which Supreme Court of the United States held that a pardoned person must introduce the pardon into court proceedings, otherwise the pardon must be disregarded by the court. To do this, the pardoned person must accept the pardon. If a pardon is rejected, it cannot be forced upon its subject. So basically, you have here in the case of, say, Donald Trump Jr. President Trump could pre-pardon Donald Trump Jr. and then he can basically just say, Donald Trump Jr. is pardoned for, you know, any potential laws he broke in, you know, during the campaign season or whatever. And and you can say that's unconditional. And, that's pretty much a pardon. Then the only way that pardon wouldn't hold is if Donald Trump Jr. rejected the pardon. It's not clear to me whether he could just let the pardon hang. I think he can, where he just doesn't accept or reject the pardon until he's actually accused of something. And then if he's accused and goes to court, then he could, you know, put into court this pardon, accept it, and it sounds like technically there might be some. He might be considered guilty at that point, but it might not hold like legal standing. That's the part that is kind of up for debate. So a court might have to rule on that. But yeah, President Trump can pretty much, including himself, by the way, can pretty much pardon anybody. The only thing he can't pardon is like you can't get around impeachment through pardoning. So because impeachment is a political thing, it's not a legal movement. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm gonna put all the sources in the description like usual. Please like, subscribe, or or share, and I'll talk to you guys later.